All right. So what is Oracle's go-to-market strategy for customer experience in India as well as globally?
So in India specifically, our customer experience strategy is designed around thinking outside in first, and then bringing forward the components that are needed for each piece of the strategy. As opposed to you have to adopt it from beginning to end all at once, it's designed so that you can take it piece by piece depending on your own specific need, and always designed from the perspective of outside in first. So that's what we're doing here, and we've adapted that actually around rest of world, because in India we have a very interesting comparison of the very, very advanced sitting right next door to the very old world. And so it's a combination of both. And in India we're seeing, again, lots of exciting startups that are doing something very interesting, that are changing the behavior of the enterprise level by innovation happening at the very small company level.
All right. You spoke about small enterprises, and here we definitely have the biggest chunk of business being the small, medium enterprises. So what's the role of Oracle? What's the extent of hand-holding in terms of cloud and big data?
Yeah, we're learning as an organization that we actually have to also redesign ourselves. So we're building out within Oracle new divisions to focus specifically in the small business space. Also, the cloud, as we think about this, has a different support model, has a different expectation than in the traditional enterprise level. And so it means that our policies have to be, let's look and see how you're using the applications, or let's see how you're solving a problem, and actually get involved in the solutioning, get involved in the consumption, get involved with advice on how to improve. Whereas in the traditional market, you take it, you deploy it, it becomes bespoke to your company, and then we wait for you to call to us for help. We have to be much more involved now with the whole cycle. And so we're redesigning and building out divisions to handle the new approach.
Right. With regards to customer service, is it different here in India and globally? Expectations?
There are differences in the expectation based on connectivity. So very much it has to do with bandwidth and available resources. And so we are having to, in markets where there's huge requirements and bandwidth varies, we're having to think quite differently about how we're delivering our service. We cannot have the expectation that you have the full infrastructure that I have in every market. And therefore we're having to adapt to the denominator that works, that's common at all levels. And that varies really by segment of the world. If we were to look at Western Europe or North America, there's one set of expectations because of the infrastructure. If we were to look across Asia, and then specifically in India, a lot of it becomes dependent on the available infrastructure, and we have to tune ourselves to not offer one size fits all, but rather how does Oracle fit a market? We have to do a better job of.
3 major challenges you're facing here in India.
I think the expectation that it's going to switch overnight. Because the Indian market moves so quickly, there's some assumptions that you'll just jump immediately. That's not always the case. The idea that we address very small markets and we can jump that directly up to the enterprise, that's also not really the case. So it's be aware of the mega trend, but operate in the individual. And that's really the challenge, I think, here. We also are dealing with multinationals that run here or that operate here, and we have to understand it's not one size fits all even within a company.
Right,
and
the captive units.
Correct.
Right. What is your take on the level of maturity of the Indian market towards customer experience? Do organizations understand the return of investment of customer experience?
I think organizations are very good at measuring return on investment on well-established topics. Now with everybody here being so social, they're not already well-defined social ROI models. And so initially I think senior executives wanted to say there isn't a payoff. Now they're realizing there's a payoff, but we're having to rethink the existing ROI models, again, by segment of the business. Because people in India are so social, because everyone has not just one cell phone, but apparently 2, sometimes 3, we have to understand that I need to have my delivery of service for each one of these platforms, my delivery of service for each one of these customers, and I need to recognize you both when you're a consumer as well as when you're actually in a B2B relationship. And I might know you both ways.
So what's the level of customization?
it evolves. Initially it's very low, and then as I start to try and differentiate, it becomes higher, and then when I want to become your go-to choice, it's actually very configured to you by persona, by how you consume it. Not necessarily the application changes, but it truly recognizes your history, your trends, or your consumption patterns. And that's where we're seeing the applications and the solutions change.
All right. How do Oracle solutions help in enhancing customer experience? Let's let go of that question. What would be your tips to a company working on its customer experience strategy?
The very first thing I would suggest to a company working on its customer experience strategy is to actually go out and talk to their customers and do it in such a way that they are a blank slate and listening completely. If you were to do a ride along with a customer and experience your service from the same point of view at which they would experience, it's very eye-opening. You think that we are delivering on time or we are delivering as required, only to find out that we are blind to the customer, and the expectation they might have for service comes from their family life, comes from their personal life, comes from a retail experience, and yet they're banking, and we're thinking banking and not retail. Or it comes from an experience that they got because they had a very good Uber experience or a very good hotel experience. And the customer experience expectation is getting set by people like Amazon or Google or Alibaba, or somebody else is setting the expectation. And so I think companies are now beginning to realize they have to change the way they deliver their service to the ways that you and I are choosing in our personal lives as well as in our professional lives. That's really the biggest shift, and my advice is go out and listen. Go do a ride along. Go actually buy your own product. One of the most successful guys I've worked with was working with an insurance company. And the first thing he did was he sat for all the classes to become an insurance broker for this company. The second thing he asked his mother and his father and his siblings to do is change their insurance. And they had all come from India to move to my hometown of Chicago. And he was able to bring an insight. Here's what it's actually like for an Indian who becomes an expat and lives in Chicago and tries to buy your product. And it was so eye-opening that it changed the way they do business. And he was extremely successful. In fact, he's kind of legendary for that level of commitment to understanding what's it like to be in the customer's shoes. And that's where I think most companies have to go.
Talking about insurance here, right now the disclosure that insurance, the subject matter solicitation is read very slowly in India. Otherwise it was just in a second or two. So yeah, you're correct. All right, so what has been Oracle's involvement in terms of customer experience and what's the inclination? Because we have companies like American Express, Amex and MetLife. For them, customer experience is really the be all and the end all. So what's the level or what's the vision for Oracle?
I think the vision for Oracle is to help all organizations get to that capability. If we look at MetLife or American Express, their brand value is their customer experience. If you carry an American Express card and there's a problem with it, you have 100% expectation. You trust the brand actually to take care of you. And MetLife, you trust the brand to take care of you. I think Oracle's notion is that everybody aspires to that level of commitment, but there's an understanding now that takes a lot of effort. It's not a one and done, it's an everyday. And it changes the way you have to perform, it changes the way you support. You know, there's nothing like you use your American Express card and you get a fraud alert. And then they've progressed today where it comes to my phone. On the phone I can say, no, I still have my phone and it's not fraud. And they solve it in the matter of 60 seconds. My confidence with their brand just soars because of that. And I think what we're seeing in this market is that everybody's waking up to that sort of capability is possible. It just has to become a business strategy.
Right. What are your target industries for customer experience solutions?
Well, we think manufacturing and high tech, we think banking, finance, and insurance, and we think healthcare right out of the gates. Telecom has been doing this for a long time. We do an awful lot in telecom. So we're really looking at where are the industries that are growing and where are the industries where they understand customer experience is the differentiator. Cell minutes are cell minutes. How I get treated determines where I do my business, right? Healthcare, we are all getting older. We are aging as a population. It's exploding. There's an understanding differentiation will come from, again, the customer experience. I think the areas where we see there's an awakening finally occurring is stuff like manufacturing and stuff along the lines of distribution, because we're also comfortable with package delivery service and the constant confidence it's going to work. Why is that not in everything? You know, the favorite brand that my household deals with sells shoes. It's called Zappos. The thing that's about it so interesting is the business of selling shoes is thousands of years old. What they have done differently is make it very easy to not only buy, but to return. And so sampling shoes, I don't have to carry any boxes. They come to my house and they return quickly. And I have a wife and 4 children. It's a constant trip. I think everyone should be able to do that.
That's great. What are the business benefits for organizations that implement Oracle's customer service solutions?
Well, the first one is increased loyalty. So it's definitely brand loyalty, which means not only are they more likely to consume more, but they're less likely to leave. That's first and foremost. I think secondarily is customer acquisition. The costs go down because word of mouth and advocacy is the byproduct of loyalty. And if we have a good experience, we talk about it. And the more good experiences we have, the more we become tolerant of a problem along the way, because we know we are treated so well over time. And so between loyalty and advocacy is probably the biggest, the operational cost of doing it falling. And then last but not least, the fact that I can do it in stages. It's very hard if I have to do it as a whole big program. In fact, I find most businesses aren't willing to say whole big program in 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. So if I can bite it off in chunks, and if I can do it knowing that I already have investments that I need to leverage, then Oracle's here to help you figure out how to leverage those investments, do it in chunks, but driving towards loyalty, leading to advocacy.
All right. What would be the strategy for here in India? Because here the loyalty is only to price. That's in context to the online marketing and online platforms, e-commerce.
So our strategy there is to look at the rest of the service cycle. There's such an intense competition on price here because people drive so hard on that. So if you and I are close in price and you win on price and then your service experience is bad, then the price becomes less important. So our thought is to have best in breed, best in class e-commerce capabilities, knowing that you are going to shop for the best price, but follow up very quickly with the best service experience around it. And between those two, we get past price only. It's got to have that service experience. I think the third piece then is market to me in context. If I take your discount and I do my deal, that doesn't mean I want the same discount and the same deal every time. If I've bought something once, it doesn't mean I'm buying it multiple times. So it's market to me when I tell you I'm in market to buy, and do not annoy me when I'm not. And so that would be another component. The B2C marketing and the B2B marketing are two different animals. Treat them differently.
Right. So how would you treat the B2C? Because here in India, that's the elephant. It is definitely the elephant, and B2B is in a way established and stabilized. But B2C, we have hikes coming, and suddenly there is a.
Yeah, I think what we are finding is do social listening then. Because when you and I go to make a purchase, or when we go to do a consumption of some type, we generally do it first asking the audience, or we will ask Google, or we will ask a friend. And by the time we make a decision, we've come to 2 or 3 channels. The smart marketing listens to this electronically for what's publicly available, and then orients the behavior around what's publicly available so that I smile. I made a purchase, and the purchase was a one-off for Father's Day. And I did not want to keep making the same purchase. And in an old world marketing, I continue to get coupons from the hardware to say, make this purchase. Now it's much more about if I ask a question about a brand, what's the experience been? Does anyone have opinion on X? And that brand owner knows when I finally come to them, if they've been listening, there's an opportunity to market just to that need and nothing else.
All right. Social media in India, do you think it would help customer experience?
I'm certain it would help customer experience. And I think we have to understand it's a fickle notion, because the commentary you make about where you've eaten or where you've driven or where you've stayed is fluid. There's not one size fits all, so it has to have multiple initiatives of varying size, and pay attention to all of them to see what takes root in your customer base, as opposed to pick the biggest one, think that's the answer, and just do it for everybody. I'm really suggesting bring it down to a level of individual listening, individual marketing.
All right. When we talk of customer service, the virtual identity, be it Facebook or any other social media activity, does not give you 100% reliance that that is what customer experience is. It ends up on a phone call. So any plans of having a captive call center, outsourcing or doing that for any other company?
Yes, I think actually the one identifier that's becoming very common for all of us is our mobile number. So it doesn't matter that my first name, last name, and middle name are all abbreviated differently or looking differently. The one thing that I keep up as an individual is my mobile number. I don't even keep up my emails, and I might have multiple emails. So I think it's designing around this idea that what are the attributes of this mobile number? Where do we interact with it? Where do we see it asking questions? Where do we see it going? And coming forward, it's by consumer choice becoming the preferred way to interact. And so if I tweet something or if I make a comment in social media and you reach out to me and respond, you may be responding directly to my mobile. And therefore you can actually start to build profiles in a different way that I get to own and identify myself. And if I don't want to respond to you again, I won't. And if I do, this is where we need to start attributing, actually around the mobile number.
Great. Anything else you would like to add?
Well, just that I think these are very exciting times because what we're also seeing is that there's an awful lot of venture money in India today that we wouldn't have found perhaps even 10 years ago. And in light of that, the innovation that's coming out of small companies is something that could be adapted to the big enterprise. So I think we have to keep an eye on what's going on all over India and figure out how to teach the old people how to dance.